Hey, what's up guys? It's Marf and welcome back to another Asphalt 9 video, and welcome to what may be a new series I think I'm going to call Old But Gold, where we take a look at some of the older cars in Asphalt 9 and see how they stack up in modern multiplayer. For this first episode, I thought it would be time to look at the Porsche 918 SPYDER in Platinum League multiplayer because I recently made it gold for the Clash. I believe one of the races you can get extra points if you have a gold Porsche 918. I don't know if they changed that though, but I might be wrong. Either way, I made it gold. It's at rank 4099, and I decided I think it'd be a good time to play with it in multiplayer and see how it stacks up against some of the other recent cars added to the game. Now, I play a lot with the 918 SPYDER anyway, but like I said, I recently made it gold, and I was quite pleased with how this car performs. Now, this car, even though it seems like it's fairly low in A-class, I would consider it to be a bit underranked. I think it's a very good competitor. Now, I'm on iOS, which means the competition here is pretty fierce once you start getting up into the upper echelons of Platinum League, where this car definitely starts to fall apart, and we'll talk about the stats in a second. But overall, I think this is a really good car, and if you have it, I would highly suggest upgrading it and going for a max gold Porsche 918. It's going to be very useful in multiplayer, and let's talk about why. So the main stat for this car is its acceleration. At gold, you have 83 acceleration, which is really good, especially compared to some of the mid-level A-class cars that are usually stuck at around 80 or 81. And some of the higher tier A-class cars, like for example my Imola, doesn't even come close to that acceleration figure. Now granted, it's because mine isn't upgraded, so if you're playing against people who have very high-end cars but they aren't upgraded, this will out-accelerate them any day of the week. And in multiplayer, especially in Classic Season, acceleration is the most important stat because it makes sure that you don't get knocked down early on into the race. Now, in addition to that, the top speed is pretty darn good. At max with nitro, you can go 234 miles per hour, which is pretty decent. A lot of the A-class cars sit around that figure, so while it's not going to be blowing past anyone in something like Ghost Slipstream, at least when you get up to your top speed, due to that awesome acceleration, you won't be getting passed by other people very quickly, so it's very strong in that sense. Another really good stat for this car is the nitro efficiency at basically 80, which is really good for A-class, especially because when you go in a shockwave, you have such a long duration that you're almost guaranteed to get up to your top speed almost every time. Now we get to the downside of this car, which is its handling. Now the stat is 51, but it definitely feels very sluggish compared to other A-class cars. Now, it's not the worst handling car ever. Something like, I believe, the GT by Citroen probably handles a bit worse than this car. However, what I do want to mention is once you get used to this car and if you are familiar with the layouts of certain tracks, you can really get around the handling. Like, it doesn't matter that much. It's not so bad to where if you're a good player, it really detriments your driving style. You just need to get adjusted to it and be aware of this limitation. So if you use things like speed tricks, wall riding, nitro punching, and some floaty drifting, you can really mitigate the loss of speed from the handling stat. So overall, I would say that even though the handling isn't that great, I don't think it really takes away from how good this car really is. So like I mentioned earlier, I think the only troubles you're going to run into with this car is at the very high end of A-class, especially at least in Platinum League. At the very higher end, once you start to near Legend League and you start getting matched with S-Class cars, there's just no way you can compete. Unfortunately, while the stats of this car are really good, I don't think they're good enough to really compete with things like maxed out Imolas or Valhallas or even a really well-equipped LaFerrari Aperta. You're going to struggle a lot, and like I said, the really good stat about this car is the acceleration, which again means you'll get up to your top speed fairly quickly, but the most important thing is maintaining that top speed. That's where you have the advantage, and that's where I think, honestly, in classic multiplayer, this is probably more effective of a car because you can blow past everyone else at the beginning of the race, let them go into the demolition derby, and then make sure you stay ahead and finish the race in top 3. Now, I'm sure it's good in Ghost Slipstream, and well, from my previous experience in other seasons, even though my car wasn't at max, it was pretty good. Like, you could use it if you run out of high-end A-class cars, because it doesn't have that super high top speed like a 570S or a GT by Citroen, I still think classic multiplayer is where this car definitely shines, like I said. So overall, I would definitely recommend trying out the Porsche 918 Spyder and making it gold, especially for classic Platinum League. At least on iOS, in the low to middle of Platinum League, this thing absolutely shreds. But like I said, once you start getting to the top parts of Platinum League and you start competing against S-Class cars who are in Legend League, unfortunately this car just isn't good enough to compete like that, but it's a very, very strong contender for Platinum League overall, and I would highly recommend it. So let me know what you guys think of this first episode of Old But Gold. I think we'll go ahead and take a look at some other cars like the Apollo N, maybe the Corvette, but let me know your suggestions in the comment section down below. Are there any other old cars you would like me to go ahead and take a look at in multiplayer in Asphalt 9? And yeah, I'll see you guys later.